She's busted a cap in the Kingpin, dated Daredevil, and hunted Hawkeye. Here's what you need to know about the upcoming Marvel series Echo, as the conflicted hero at the center of it all. In the last episode of Hawkeye, we see Maya Lopez declare war on Wilson Fisk, the infamous crime lord and Maya's adoptive uncle. So where will the Echo series pick up? We know Maya will leave New York City and head back to her hometown to reconnect with her family and Native American heritage. Speaking with Collider, Marvel producer Steven Broussard delved a bit deeper into the show's tone, saying, "It's a very different tonal sort of thing. It feels very grounded. It feels very spiritual in ways that feel fresh for us." He also spoke about the setting of the series, explaining that it takes place in rural Oklahoma. We also know the series will focus on events in Maya's childhood, plus we'll see the effects of her relationship with the Kingpin play out across the series. At an October 2023 press event, director and executive producer Sidney Freeland said the show is going to put an emphasis on trauma and how the characters cope with it. Driving home the personal stakes, Freeland went on to say, "It's not the fate of the universe at stake. This is the fate of family." Alaqua Cox is, of course, reprising her role as Maya Lopez in the spin-off series. What's especially wild is that Hawkeye was Cox's first ever acting role. She also has the distinction of being the first Native American hero and the second deaf superhero in the MCU. Of course, Cox won't be the only Hawkeye character coming back. Vincent D'Onofrio will be returning as the murderous Wilson Fisk of Daredevil fame. We can also expect the return of Zahn McClarnon, who played Maya's loving father. They'll be joined by another character who's instantly recognizable to Marvel fans. Charlie Cox is returning as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. Rounding out the cast, Echo is shining the spotlight on some serious indigenous talent. We've got Graham Greene, Charles K. Spencer, Tantu Cardinal, Devery Jacobs, and Cody Lightning. Rumors have suggested that we might also see a plotline involving Kristen Ritter's Jessica Jones, but that remains speculation for now. When it comes to behind-the-scenes talent, Echo boasts some pretty impressive filmmakers. Serving as head writer, we've got Marion Dare, who's worked on high-profile series like The Act, Shantaram, and Better Call Saul. On the directing side of things, the episodes will be helmed by Indigenous directors Sidney Freeland and Katrina McKenzie. McKenzie has worked on TV series such as The Walking Dead, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Supernatural, whereas Freeland has directed episodes of Reservation Dogs, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and Rutherford Falls. These creatives are taking Echo in important new directions, such as switching Maya Lopez from a member of the Cheyenne tribe to a member of the Choctaw tribe. Along with that, they're diving deep into the Choctaw culture, striving to make a series that's as accurate as possible. We also know that they're switching up Maya's powers, with Freeland saying at that same October 2023 press event, her power in the comic books is that she can copy anything, any movement, any whatever. It's kind of lame. I will say that is not her power. I'll just kind of leave it at that. For the longest time, Marvel has stayed away from getting too edgy in the MCU. Their movies are all PG-13, and their TV shows are all family-friendly. However, in recent years, the MCU has been pushing the boundaries a bit. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 dropped the MCU's first F-bomb.
Open the door!
Marvel Brass has promised that Deadpool 3 will be rated R, and now Echo will be the first MCU TV show with a TV-MA rating. Speaking about this gritty new tone at the October 2023 press event, director and executive producer Sidney Freeland said, "We wanted very adamantly to show that these are people on our show. They bleed, they die, they get killed, and there are real-world consequences." In other words, it looks like Echo will be following more in the grittier footsteps of Netflix's Daredevil, as opposed to the Disney Plus show Hawkeye. By this point, we've all gotten used to the fact that MCU projects all tie into each other. Every installment, whether it be on Disney Plus or the big screen, contributes to the larger whole and helps push the overall saga along, even as it tells its own story. The Hawkeye series first introduced Echo and set her up for her own series. And the big question now is how Echo will feed back into the ongoing saga of the MCU. As it turns out, Echo might somewhat break from the Marvel tradition and tell a story that's much more self-contained than we've all grown accustomed to. Marvel Studios is launching a new initiative called Marvel Spotlight that will highlight stories that don't ask viewers to be perfectly caught up with all the MCU lore. Echo will be the first show branded as part of Marvel Spotlight. The MCU, like the Marvel comics that came before it, has admittedly gotten a little weighed down by its own interconnected lore. Back in the early 1970s, Marvel Comics also dealt with this issue by creating a Marvel Spotlight series that focused on telling standalone stories. The MCU is really just catching up to Marvel's past here. Echo may be more or less standalone, but the show is still part of the MCU. So even though you don't need to watch every other piece of Marvel content to follow what's happening, Echo still has a place in the overall MCU timeline. That timeline has gotten a bit harder to follow in recent years, and tends to leave newcomers to the universe saying,
"What is this place?"
But luckily it's not hard to find where Echo fits in it, which might be exactly why Marvel picked this to be the first Marvel Spotlight show. Echo was, again, first introduced in Hawkeye as a skilled leader and brutal fighter. She had a bit of a vendetta against Clint Barton because of his actions as Ronin, but the two of them settled their differences, and now Echo's own show will pick up sometime shortly after the events of Hawkeye. That means Echo takes place well after the blip, and is happening at more or less the same time as other Phase 5 MCU shows and movies. Since Echo is supposed to be more self-contained than other Marvel stories, you probably won't hear all that much about the blip. And you definitely won't need to know what the other in-universe heroes like Captain Marvel are up to. Music has a big role to play in any show, but it's going to be especially important for Echo. Other Marvel projects, both inside and outside of the MCU, have made a splash with their soundtracks in the past, and a strong one could really help Echo make a big splash. Luckily, the series score is in good hands. Echo landed one of the most talented young composers in the business. 25-year-old Mato Waiyuhi is best known for his work on the Hulu series Reservation Dogs, but he's also worked on feature-length films like War Pony, and he's released a number of his own albums. Waiyuhi will be bringing that experience to his work on Echo, and he'll also be bringing his own perspective as a member of the Oglala Lakota tribe in South Dakota. Echo herself is Native American, and the TV show will explore her relationship to her family and her Native identity. Because of that, Waiyuhi might be the perfect person to have been tapped as composer for the series. The point of the new Marvel Spotlight banner is to create MCU content that's more welcoming to newcomers than the mainline shows and movies. But if you're really excited to dive into Echo, you might want to spend some time catching up on the bits of MCU history that are most likely to tie into the show. Hawkeye is an obvious one. You'll get to see Echo's very first MCU appearance, and get some deeper insight into what she was doing just before the start of her own series. But if you're a real Marvel completist, you might want to catch up with some of the other characters who are going to appear in Echo. The first trailer for the show made it clear that Wilson Fisk is going to have a fairly large role to play.
You and I are the same.
He was first introduced in the Netflix Daredevil series, so watching that will get you up to speed on his history and help you prepare for the inevitable appearance of Charlie Cox as Daredevil. Hawkeye is available to stream on Disney+. The Netflix Daredevil show has also made its way to Disney+. Basically, Disney+ is your one-stop shop for everything that's related to Echo, so you can binge the full backstory before you binge the brand new series. Plenty of fans first met Echo when Hawkeye aired in 2021. But comic book fans have known her for more than 2 decades. Echo was first introduced in Daredevil Volume 2, Issue 9, and was initially introduced as an antagonist chasing down our hero. She squared off against Daredevil because she mistakenly believed that he was the man who killed her father. She went on to join the New Avengers and get caught up in all sorts of Marvel shenanigans, like World War Hulk and The Secret Invasion. The MCU version of Echo has already deviated from the comic book canon pretty significantly. It already seems safe to say that Echo won't be an adaptation of any particular storyline from the comics, though it might draw some inspiration from Echo's earlier Marvel history. In the comics, Fisk killed Echo's father himself, but it's too early to tell if that particular traumatic event will work its way into the new Disney Plus show. It seems that almost anywhere that Kingpin goes, Daredevil is sure to follow. The hero actually didn't appear in Hawkeye, but now thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home and She-Hulk, we know that he's officially in the MCU.
I'm here.
He's set to come back once again for Echo, which means we could see him coming face-to-face with the Kingpin for the first time since the Netflix Daredevil series ended. There aren't any solid details about Daredevil's presence in Echo just yet. For all we know, he could have next to nothing to do with the plot. But assuming the show is taking some cues from the comics, it could also be a central part of Echo's story. In the comics, the two fought each other multiple times before Echo realized that the Kingpin had manipulated her, which led to her paying him back by blinding him with a gunshot.
Sometimes family doesn't see eye to eye.
That part of the story already played out in Hawkeye, but the next part of Echo's relationship with Daredevil could still happen. After putting their fighting days behind them in the comics, the two actually fell in love. Their relationship on the page has always been fraught with tension. Romance is never easy for superheroes, but they've always been able to rely on each other in times of need. Maybe we'll get to see a new take on that romantic relationship in Echo. Ever since WandaVision first premiered in early 2021, Marvel has followed the same exact formula for its Disney Plus shows. Instead of releasing every episode at once, they've been going the Mandalorian route, releasing one episode per week. However, that's gonna change with Echo, which will be using the binge model. Yep, all 5 episodes will be available to stream on the same day. In fact, Echo will hit Disney Plus and Hulu at the same time. Echo was originally meant to premiere on November 29th, but with Marvel wanting to make sure their products were in tip-top shape, coupled with the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes, the studio reshuffled its TV schedule. Now, Echo will be hitting Disney Plus and Hulu on January 10th, 2024. See you there.